Hello everyone, my name is Lauren-Jane. I'm a junior doctor. I'm an F2, I'm currently working in obs and gynae and I want to be a surgeon, so I'm working hard towards that. So this video is about how to become a surgeon, and it's aimed at people who are not yet in medicine or who are in the early stages of your medical degree. So in terms of first step is to get into medical school. So if you're a person who's at school, who's doing GCSEs and A-levels, you obviously need excellent results. If you don't get your results, it is not the end of the world. You can still be a doctor. Please see my other video, which is about what to do if you don't get great grades. If you do get great grades, well done, but you mustn't rest on your laurels. There's more that needs to be done. So think extracurriculars, think work experience. I've also made a video on work experience, which you might find helpful. I really want to make your work experience work for you. So please see that video if you think that that's relevant to you. If you're a person who is kind of beyond the A-level GCSE kind of stage, perhaps you've somewhere later in life, or perhaps you've done a degree, gone off and worked, can you still be a doctor? Can you still be a surgeon? Absolutely, yes you can. Again, please see the video that I made about what to do if you didn't get great grades, because I cover it in there. So let's say you've got into medical school now, that's fantastic news. So what you need to do is you need to keep an eye on surgery if you're really sure that's what you want to do all the way through medical school, because surgery is super competitive. So the more that you do earlier on, the better. If you're a person who is struggling with medical school, then try and limit yourself. You mustn't stress yourself out thinking about an application that you're going to do in 5 or 6 years. It's not worth it. Focus on the things that are immediate. However, if you can keep an eye on things, if you can do an extra club. So for instance, at Nottingham when I trained, we had a surgical society called Scrubs. Being president of something like that can be really good on your application, and it shows early commitment to the speciality, which is something that you can show when you apply at F2 for your surgical training. So what you really want for surgical training is you need to be aware of kind of the process of application. So after medical school, you apply for your foundation years, and then you will get 6 random placements, which you can kind of choose. It depends on how well you do, but you probably want to choose something that's quite surgical. So mine's quite surgical. I've done cardiac surgery, ENT and obs and gynae, as well as 3 medical ones, well, 2 medical ones and a psychiatry. So there's quite a lot of surgical experience there. So you want to look for something that is quite surgical based, because it gives you things to talk about and surgeries to log. In F2, you apply for your core surgical training, which is the first time you will apply to do surgery. So this is the point that we're thinking of throughout medical school. So through medical school, there are things that you can do to kind of bolster that application that makes it easier for you later on. So the surgical societies are always good, like I said. Doing things like basic surgical skills courses as a student are really helpful. And the reason this is because, and I learned this the hard way, they are so much cheaper when you're a student. So try and get a basic surgical skills course booked early on. Some of them you can't do until you're in F1, but many different operators will offer basic surgical skills courses. Now, you do get points for application. You do get points on application for having attended surgical skills courses. So things like that are all good things that you can log early on. The more you do, the better. So think about basic surgical skills courses, think about audits. So at application, you get points for things like publications and audits. There will often be more senior doctors in the hospital that are wanting to do audits or publications and want someone to kind of do the data population. If you can get involved in that early, like think perhaps over your summer break, if you're happy to come in for a day or 2 and just populate that data, you can end up getting your name on either a publication or pulling an audit through, which you can log. So log all of the information, the whole project, save it, put it in a portfolio, and then when you come to apply later on, you've already done one audit, which you will get points for on your application. It's just really useful to be kind of ahead of everyone else by the time you come to application. Other things that you can consider are surgical electives. So you will do a 6-week elective, depending on where you go to medical school, kind of either 4th year or 5th year. So you can go abroad, you can stay in the UK, it really depends what you want to do. If you want to do something super high-tech and specialist, then you probably want to go somewhere in the West. So you could stay, if you had an interest in something really niche, fetal surgery, or something that's really, really super high tech, you might want to go to London or wherever in the country they offer that niche speciality and it's done to a high standard. Or you could think of America, places like that, that will offer you practical experience in a very well-known and well-funded system. If you want to go abroad, it's a really nice life experience. You can still do a surgical elective, but obviously it won't offer you the same kind of training and experience. So that's something to bear in mind, but it's still great experience. And at the end of the day, whether you go to Ghana or London, you're still doing a surgical elective. So you're still going to get points for having demonstrated commitment to the speciality. What is the only reason that it's different is when you get to interview and things like that, you can talk about what you did on your elective. If it was more kind of Western based and if it's a very niche speciality and things like that, can be more useful, I think. Another thing that you can do once you qualify as an F1 is you can do a taster week in your speciality and you get points for this application as well. So if you're considering doing, for instance, pediatric surgery or plastic surgery, you can take a week out of any of your placements and you can do a full week in that speciality, which just gives you the kind of opportunity to really work in that speciality, get a sense of what the trainees think, what the consultants think, what the work-life balance is like, what the surgery is like, and then you get points for that application as well, which is great. In addition to this, there's other things that you can do. So one of the things you get points for application is demonstrating regular teaching. So if you're in medical school at the moment, it's probably a really good idea can you set up some kind of course, because you get lots of points for that. If you set up a course, you get maximum points. If you can demonstrate regular teaching, you get less points than setting up a course, but you do get good points for that. So something like street doctors is fantastic because you get to demonstrate that you're doing regular teaching because you're getting certificates for the teaching that you do. You get less points for kind of sporadic teaching, not very many points at all, I think it's 1, but it's better than nothing if that's all you can get. So universities will always want higher medical students to teach the lower medical students. You can even offer things in the community. So as a med student, I used to take students from senior schools who were interested in doing medicine, and they would come and shadow for a week or a day or whatever, and then you kind of get the certificate that demonstrates that you are kind of teaching. The best thing to do is to organise a course. The easiest place to do this is probably in medical school. I had a friend who organised a sign language course in our university, so there are things that you could offer to other students, either from local secondary schools or to your cohort. It really depends on what your interest is. The other thing to think about is to think about your e-logbook really early on. So your e-logbook is an electronic system where you log what surgeries you've done and whether you've assisted and things like that. So if you're a medical student and you are dead set on surgery, what you want to do is you want to just keep a log of all of those surgeries that you're doing all the way through, because then when you get to present that at your speciality or core interview, you can show that actually I've done this many surgeries over 2 or 3 years, which is all great experience. In addition, something that I'm involved with is looking at things like leadership programs. So when I was an F1, I applied to do the Mary C. Cole leadership program in F2. So that starts next month. So it is something that I have to do in my own time, but it will give me a leadership qualification, a clinical leadership qualification, which will look good on my application. So sometimes these things are very time dependent. So you can't do this program before you're in F2. So it doesn't help you if you're kind of a first year medical student thinking about surgery. But actually it's a good idea just to kind of have an eye on what could be coming up in the future, so you know what to look for and seize those opportunities as soon as you get them. So to summarise kind of the key messages in this video, if you have great grades and you're GCSE A-level student, fantastic. Make sure your work experience and your extracurriculars are as strong as your grades. If you're a person who is wanting to be a doctor and has not got any formal qualifications, then have a look at my video about that. Hopefully that's helpful. It can be done. Stay focused, stay committed, you can do it. If you're a person who's in medical school and thinking about surgery, then always try and maintain, if possible, that you're in the higher part of the cohort. So when it comes to rankings, you can be in the hospital of your choice and you can have a more surgical program. If you're definitely interested in something, like you think, for instance, I definitely want to do cardiothoracic surgery, so this is the placement that I want to have, it is so much better if you can put that as your first choice and then get that. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can do a taster week. Please don't stress yourself out. Medical school is really stressful. Also made a video about mental health with medical students, and I don't want to say to people, make sure you're in the top kind of rankings and then that causes them lots of stress, because it's not possible for everyone. It's not the end of the world if you end up doing a general surgery rotation rather than cardiothoracics. It might not make any difference whatsoever, so please don't let it work you up. But if you are a person who definitely wants to do something, then go for it. Choose cardiothoracics and see if you get it. Audits throughout medical school if possible. Think about publications. Think about organising a course if you can. Think about regular teaching, something like street doctors. Or we had one called Juniors, which was where you could teach first aid skills to people in schools. So there are often, in your medical school, there might be things that offer a regular teaching programme which you can demonstrate. Just always have an eye on what is on that application, and I would really recommend you go to type in on the internet person specification for whatever you're applying for. So ST or CT, depending on whether you're applying for a specialism or core training, person specification, and it will give you a list of all of the things that we're kind of talking about, such as the group teaching, and it will give you something that you can work back from. So think about all the way through medical school, what am I demonstrating for this? And then just keep it, because that's the other thing, is that I think when I was at med school, I didn't know I wanted to do surgery. I did many things, but I didn't necessarily keep the evidence because I didn't think it was super important. If you have that person spec kind of hung by your desk and it's constantly in your mind, you can gear your behaviour and your work towards it, and then just make sure you save the evidence for your portfolio. And it's probably not a bad idea to get a folder and put all of your evidence in it as you go along. Have it reviewed by your tutor, if you've got a surgical tutor, if there's someone you can talk to, a mentor. If you are a female, obviously there is the WINS Society, which is part of the Royal College of Surgeons. It might be worth looking on there to see if there's anything that they can support you with. Sometimes you can sign up for mentors. I found that really useful. Always look for things like courses. If they're cheap and they're free, you might as well go along. Save the course. You often get a certificate for attending the course. Again, just bang that in your portfolio. Even if you think it's not important, it shows that you are going to these things, especially if they're surgical. You're doing extra stuff in your own time, and that's important. Obviously, my journey as a surgeon is not complete. I am at the point of obviously F2, but I've learnt so much in these 2 years of trying to be a surgeon. I wanted to share that with you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks a lot. Bye.